We're going to start off with a theist calling from Virginia. Is it Jiro or Jiro?
Jiro. Hello. Nice to meet you guys.
How you doing?
I have a lot to say. I'd like to get started, and I'd like to completely get through like this kind of monologue I've set up before you guys cut me off.
That's probably not going to happen.
Not going to happen?
That's
all right,
probably
well,
not going to happen.
Just
listen to me for a second, because we can make this really easy. Yeah. I'm happy to give you plenty of time to explain what it is that you want, but we are going to have to interrupt both to ask questions for clarification and to make sure that we don't, get here's 23 points and then we, have to pause and try to address 18 of them. So let's just kind of go one at a time. Yeah, what is it you're talking about? What is the primary point and how you're going to justify?
First of all, I want to say, please don't let the bad apples of Christianity represent really what Christianity means.
Jiro, neither one of us have do not give a shit about bad Christians. That's not why we're atheists.
Okay, then moving on. All right, so what I come with is not exactly an evidence, is not a sort of proof for God. Even though we can't really prove anything and we can't really know anything, it is up to us to.
That's not true. There are plenty of things there are plenty of things that we can demonstrate and reasonably know to be true, right?
Reasonably believe to be true, not know. Believe.
No, I'm saying I believe I'm holding a cell phone in my hand right now. Matter of fact, I'm supremely confident. I'm supremely confident. I not only believe, but I know that I'm holding a cell phone right now.
As supremely as it can get, it will never reach 100%.
Correct. Yes. I do not think that you can be absolutely certain about anything. However, we aren't asking for certainty, Jiro. We're asking for a demonstration that God exists.
I do not. In the Bible, it says that God shall not be tested. So if you expect to see a demonstration of God,
why does it matter what the Bible says?
Here's the thing. You want me to demonstrate God exists. I'm telling you that if God were to exist, He would not allow Himself to be demonstrated in that sort of way.
Why?
You understand?
No. I don't know how you. I don't know. Listen. Pause. Yes. I don't know. I don't know how you know that God would not allow Himself to be demonstrated like that. How do you know that?
I don't know that. I am not even.
Then why would you make a claim? Then why would you make a claim? Can you demonstrate that that's actually true?
If the God I believe in, I cannot demonstrate that it is true. I highly believe that it is.
I don't care which God you believe in. I care why. Why we should believe in that God.
All right. Well, even if our Father, the biblical Father, the God in the Bible, were to be true, do not expect it to be tested.
Jiro, why are we talking about the Bible? Why are we talking about the Bible?
Well, I'm just talking about God, and the Bible is one of the many, and for me, the most highly believable of the gods, if there is one.
That's just
my opinion.
If there is a God, oh my God! Can you not hear me fucking talking?
I'm kind of delayed. I might be cutting you off. Sorry.
I know there's a delay. So you keep saying the biblical God. What reason should we have to believe that the biblical God is possible or likely?
I will. Well, to start off, all the claims and accounts. I'll admit right here and now that I am not any historian or a theologian. I'm not able to explain those accounts away. The point I came here on here to say is something entirely different. It's a different approach that I'd like to take with you guys.
Okay.
It's not about the evidence, but about how we view the evidence. All right, I'd like to get started.
Genuinely, I do not understand what you mean, because I care about evidence. Why would it matter I can't wait to hear why you're more concerned with how we view the evidence. Because first of all, there would need to be evidence for us to view. So, when you're done explaining
Yeah.
your take here on this, I'd like you to give an example of an evidence that you think we're viewing incorrectly.
So, I mean, let's say we find glass on the ground. You might view that as evidence of a car crash that just happened. Let's say it's in the middle of the street, or it might be evidence of a broken window. But we could call that evidence,
I'm
and
sorry,
we can view it in different ways. It doesn't matter what
You
the
just
truth is.
suggested that if we found a piece of glass on the ground, it might be evidence of a broken window or a car accident. What part of the car broke?
The window, the windshield.
So in both cases, we're talking about a broken window, not in one case.
Yeah. Evidence
Sure.
for a broken window of what we don't know.
Yeah. So we found a piece of glass. How do you know what it's evidence for?
The thing is, what I'm trying to say here is that this piece of glass, no matter where it came from, is a piece of evidence.
No.
We just need to determine.
Jiro.
No, not
the piece. No, listen. The piece of glass is an item that may or may not be evidence for something.
Maybe we're talking. We're disagreeing on terms. Are you meaning that the piece of glass is a puzzle piece of a larger story, and we don't know what that story is?
Yeah, I would say that.
Okay.
It is an evidence for the all truth. The truth.
No, that's something different.
And
you're saying I found a piece of glass. Something happened here. It came from somewhere. It belonged to something. It is a puzzle piece for a larger story, and we don't know the story, right?
Yes.
Fair enough.
It is an evidence for a larger story. So here's what I want to say about our view of evidence. I imagine an atheist view of after death there is nothing to be like a sinking ship.
Jiro?
Yeah.
We don't need you to imagine an atheist view, because first of all, you might imagine an atheist view that neither of us hold, but atheism doesn't have any position on whether or not there's an afterlife.
Okay.
So instead of trying to pretend like you know what atheists think, keep going with the justification for what you think.
All right. So the sinking in this metaphor, whatever atheism may be, whatever anything may be, in this metaphor, we are on a sinking ship, and the sinking is our timeline, our life running out, little by little. And we know our life is sinking. We know that. We can reasonably assume that based on the evidence of everyone around us is dying. Why shouldn't we also die? So we know we're going to die. We have good reason to believe that. What I'm saying is, if we believe that we're going to die and we don't have any kind of any permanence, any immortality through our works, all our works are finite. All our works are going to eventually amount to, who knows, nothing. It is better to grasp at straws and to look at the evidence in a way that favors our eternal life. That favors that.
I'd like to jump in, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So far in this conversation, even though you say you hold to the Christian deity, right? The God of Christianity, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard.
I can be convinced otherwise.
Pardon me?
I can be convinced otherwise, but
okay. Well,
I think there's room to convince me.
Fair enough. But so far, what I have not heard is the language of real conviction. I've heard cannot demonstrate, if there is one, and you just use the phrase grasp at straws. And I disagree with the premise that a finite life is without meaning. Just because we are not handed an eternal purpose from a third party an outward agent doesn't mean that we cannot self-generate purpose. And though it may not matter in 150 years, it matters in the moment. And the analogies I like to use are this: in a finite life, a beautiful piece of music has a final note, and then the song is over. Is that not a beautiful piece of music? If you sit down and enjoy a delicious meal, the food still tastes great, and you're spending time with those you care about over dinner or whatever. But there will be a moment when everybody leaves the table and that dinner is done. Was it not a meal worth enjoying and sharing together? We do temporary things all the time, but perhaps even the temporary nature of these experiences and the fact that we've seen no evidence for a posthumous existence, maybe the finite life is all the more precious because the moments are fleeting, because there may be no tomorrow. I think that makes a whole lot more sense than a numbing eternity where there is always a tomorrow and everything that could be done would be done, and it all becomes circular to the point where you glaze over. I prefer the finite life, wouldn't you?
Actually, I used to prefer that. Yeah, I used to prefer porn addiction. I used to prefer eating junk food when I felt like it. Those momentary pieces of pleasure were very important to me. Then
Jiro, you should look into this, because porn addiction and sex addiction aren't actually a real thing. But
well,
go ahead.
I'm more interested in how he pinballed into vice, or what some might call vice. And I'm not sure what
you were talking about beauty. You were talking about beauty, and he immediately goes to porn.
Okay.
Sorry, you got that baggage.
Can I? Well, yeah, I'm sorry I had that baggage too. Can I please continue a little so I can have some time to explain?
Explain what?
The thing is,
Seth's point here is that you haven't. Seth's point here was that you haven't done anything to offer a reason to believe, or even a reason why you believe.
I want to give you the reason I believe. Here's the reason.
Then do it.
Those momentary meanings. You said yes. You said you confirmed, or you kind of admitted that yes, we might have no meaning in the long run, or it might be all meaningless in the long run, but the moments have meaning. How does that logic flow? I want to say that because we have meaning in the long run, therefore our journey is justified. Who goes on a road trip knowing they can't make it? Who goes out to the grocery store if they don't know if it's going to close by then? They sit down at home. They don't even move from
analogies,
they are frozen.
my friend.
This is good.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to finish the thought, and then I'll step back. But you're speaking in terms of some sort of a preordained destination. And I think, the finite life can be a precious and wonderful life, where you're talking about going to the store, you're talking about taking a trip to a destination. When I say, well, I don't know what the destination is, there's no evidence that it is ongoing, that we think that there will be a stopping point. But every minute between me and that stopping point, a mandated finish, wherever and however it may come about, those moments can be experienced and enjoyed as we draw breath and feel the sun on this planet. A finite existence can be loaded with meaning, self-generated purpose, and beauty. And to take the leap between, well, if it's not eternal, then it is meaningless, that's an awfully long leap to get from there to the Christian God who you say you've been grasping at straws with. You see the problem, don't you?
Plus, you contradicted yourself, because you say that it's pointless and useless to go on a journey if you don't know that the destination is reachable. Isn't that what you said a minute ago?
I think I said that.
Isn't that what you said?
I would prefer actually
if you said that, if you see that when I ask you a yes or no question, it's much easier if you just say yes or no, and then we can do the follow up. Because if your view is that it's useless to go on a journey if you don't know the destination is reachable, then you should absolutely stop believing in a God, because you have no idea if there's an afterlife you can reach. Your own reasoning just undermined everything you were trying to say.
But here's the thing. I am moving on hope. What are you moving on? What do you make your daily actions on besides just, I like this moment, I like that moment?
What's wrong with that?
That is the difference. That is why
I don't care what the difference is. The difference is, Jiro, I give a shit about whether or not something's true rather than whether or not it feels good or feels important to me. If I'm living my life, enjoying life, and interrupt me again, I dare you. If I'm going through life, enjoying life, why isn't that enough?
What? Here's why it's not enough. Because the goals that you set, like let's say you want to get your family together for dinner. That is a goal. You set that goal, and then there's a goal for the goals you set. You just might not see it. There is a purpose for the purposes you set, the meanings you set. There's a meaning to the meanings you set. It is
Jiro, there's no meaning in any.
Not a regret.
Jiro, there's no meaning in any of the dribble that you're spewing right now. I specifically asked, why is it not enough to enjoy life? And you said the goal that you set, there's a goal for the goals, and you might not see it. You are not even remotely thinking about or answering the question I asked, which is, why is it wrong to live your life based upon desires and learning and enjoyment? Why is that wrong?
Because you overlook the main reason why we have these desires, why we do these things, because you are looking at the gift and not the giver. And you call my words dribble. That is your fault.
Jiro, no. Pause, Jiro. You said that the reason it's not enough.
Sorry, I'm delayed.
I know. That's why I said it many times. Now stop talking. You said the reason that it's wrong to live based on a desire for enjoyment and knowledge and things like that is because I overlooked the main reason why we have those desires. First of all, why we have those desires is irrelevant to whether or not following or seeking those desires is true, but it is good or true. However, when you say it's because I overlooked the main reason, what is the main reason that we have these desires, and how do you know?
The main reason, which we can infer by looking at where our wants and goals point to, where the wants of our wants point to, is to be closer with God, is to love God.
That's a load of bullshit, Jiro. That is an assertion. That is an assertion that you will need to justify, because you just said that all of us are wrong because we overlook the main reason, which is that we should be seeking God or should be doing what God wants. That's the very thing you're supposed to be demonstrating. You don't just get to assert that all the rest of us are doing it wrong because we're not seeking God. You have to show that we're wrong. Can you do that?
How can I demonstrate to you that you're wrong in liking?
Not my problem. Not my problem, Jiro. You are the one that is advocating. All right, I'm going to mute you now because you won't shut up when you need to. You are the one asserting that we're wrong and that we should be seeking God. When I ask you how you can demonstrate that, you begin to immediately whine, how could I do that? Well, that's not my fucking problem. I'm not the one sitting here advocating for things that I can't demonstrate. Why are you?
And if I can jump in quickly, Matt, I think near the beginning of the conversation, and you can correct me if you want, Jiro, that you said God would not make himself demonstrable, right? God would not give us conclusive proof for his existence. I think I heard you say something along those lines. Did you say that?
You would not want to be tested. He does not want to be tested. The God of the Bible, at least. How do I know?
Yeah.
Well, you can say by his kind of absence towards people who want to test him. You can.
Oh, so you're saying that God's absence is confirmation of God?
No, it's not. It's not. No, it isn't. No, it is not.
So the less provable he has been, the more proven he is. You hear the problem.
I'm saying he is very untestable, and he is very hard to prove.
A divine father, then, a divine father made earthly fathers in his image in many ways, and we are called throughout the scriptures God's children. What kind of loving, benevolent, protective, responsible deity, father figure, would say, I refuse to properly demonstrate and prove myself, my love, my commandments to a child? Why would that deity, why would that father be purposefully vague? Parents say to their kids all the time, hey, here's the boundary. Here's what to do. Here's not what to do. Here's how I'm going to keep you safe. And then they demonstrate themselves, who they are, what they think, their values, and their love on a moment by moment basis. Your argument is that God, the God of the Bible, who loves us even more than any human parent, loves us more by making himself vague and remaining silent in the avalanche of our questions. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And can I expand more on that point of the child and the father and the parent?
I'm wildly curious. Yes, please do.
Yes. All right. So I just blanked out on what I was going to say. So on the child and parent part, why would a parent refuse to help their child when, let's say, someone is about to get in a car crash? The sons of God. Why would they do that? Because after a certain amount of time of helping them, the children will start getting themselves into these situations on purpose, just so the God can help, just so the God can be in their favor, just so they would start jumping off cliffs just so God can pick them back up. That's why. That's why you don't tempt a God, because then you'll start to be tempted to tempt a God.
Would you then, knowing that your child was about to be in a horrific car accident, even if your child had been wildly disobedient and problematic and whatever, but you had the power to prevent the collision, which might cost them a limb, which might paralyze them or kill them outright, you ever, as an act of love, would you just sit back and do nothing to prevent what was about to happen?
Yes. You know why? Because the child, if they were to lose a limb and if they were to come out with their life, no matter how little their life is, it is still a gift to be able. Let's say you're not able to walk or to talk. Let's say you're a paraplegic all of a sudden because you died in a car crash, trying to test the Lord. All of a sudden, you learn that the Lord is not to be tested, and you just
okay.
Even the tiny bit of life.
If I may, one final thought. I have one final thought, and I suspect that this is the kind of tragic thinking that comes about when you deny yourself porn and tacos. I just want that on the record.
So one of the problems here is that you said that God is untestable, and my position is that if something is untestable, one cannot have a reasonable conclusion about that untestable position. How do you solve for that problem?
This is what I was talking about of the sinking ship. We know we are going to die. We are guaranteed that we are going to die.
As far as I know, I'm going to die. I'm sorry, but when I ask a question, I want that question answered, not a rehashing of something else.
This is expanding on that so I can touch your question.
No,
so I can,
you don't need to expand on any. You don't need to expand. You need to listen and learn. If a position is untestable, and you are claiming this position is untestable, can anyone reach a reasonable conclusion about that position if it's untestable? Yes or no?
Yes. In a Pascal Wagerly type fashion, yes.
No. I need you to now demonstrate how someone can reach a reasonable conclusion about an untestable proposition. Begin.
In a Pascal type wager, we are in a sinking ship. We are going to die. We have no choice but to jump on another ship.
I'm sorry, Jiro, but you can assert this. You can assert this bullshit about Pascal's wager all you want. It was literally the first video that I put up on the Atheist Debates Patreon project. Pascal's wager is an absolutely garbage argument, and it in no way demonstrates the truth. Pascal's wager at its best says this is what you should practically do if A, B, and C, and D, but it doesn't tell you anything at all about what's actually true. As a matter of fact, Blaise Pascal recognized that belief is not subject to the will and said that if you cannot be convinced, you should act as if you're convinced, which is, I think, exactly what you're doing. I'm talking about epistemology.
Yes.
And I need you to I'm talking about epistemology, and I need you to demonstrate how a claim that you say is untestable can be, how anyone can reach a reasonable conclusion about the accuracy of that claim if it's untestable. Go.
It is. We cannot test it. We cannot expand our.
I know we can't test it. So if you can't test, why are you restating? I don't need you to restate the fucking problem. I need you to think about the problem and maybe go away and come back when you figure out how to test the untestable.
Are you going to kick me out now?
Do you have a way to test the untestable? Do you have a way to detect the undetectable?
No, because you just stated what is a paradox?
I didn't state a paradox. What I said is that your position, stop interrupting me. You said God is untestable.
You stop interrupting me. You are over.
Here you go. Now you're muted. Guess who doesn't get to interrupt anybody anymore? Oh, now you're going to hang up and run away because you're a little coward. We knew that because you called yesterday with this bullshit. The thing here is, I get your frustration. I'm sorry that you had to run away. But when you ask questions like this, when somebody says, hey, I believe in something that is untestable, my question then becomes, what is your justification for believing something that is untestable? If you say, hey, it's completely untestable as to whether or not there's a rock shaped like my head on Mars, but I believe it's there, and I'm going to live my life as if it's there, that is patently absurd to me. You are in the position where you are advocating, as a matter of pragmatism, belief in something that has never been demonstrated to be possible or probable, belief in something that you say is untestable, and you are bending over backwards to find every way for this God to continue to keep hiding itself. Oh, well, God doesn't want to be tested. How do you know that? How do you know anything about any characteristic of any God? Oh, well, the Bible says. Yeah, how do you know the Bible is talking about any God that's real? Oh, well, I'm just saying this is consistent with the character of the God of the Bible. Cool. Call in at some time and talk about the characteristics of the gods in Hindu scriptures and the God in the Quran. None of it gets us anywhere closer to truth. You are just spewing forth what your opinions are. And when we push back to say, how do you justify your opinions? You just say, we're on a sinking ship. We know we're going to die. We got to desperately flail around, and we might as well accept this God. What if the real God gets pissed because you picked a God based on a stupid, untestable, unfalsifiable view? It's kind of frustrating.
Pascal's always interested me because the people I've talked to who've used it, at least in the colloquial sense, have been like, well, at least if you believe, which is inaccurate because you can't force belief, but if you act as if you fake belief, meaning that you're putting one over on God. If I believe and I die and I was wrong, I've lost nothing. And I always thought to myself, that makes no sense to me. You've spent decades and decades of your life, time, energy, resources, money, all of this stuff in service to a myth. How could you not have wasted so much precious time and energy and resources? So I just think the whole premise, I understand why. I don't think you do a lot of work. You don't take a lot of Pascal's wagers calls these days for that reason, probably. I know it's old news for most, but I still find it interesting. I'd rather believe and be wrong. Well, you can't force yourself to believe. The Bible commands belief, which makes no sense, right? Yep. If you confess with your mouth that Jesus, how's it go? If you confess in your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart God raised him from the dead, you're commanded. Well, I can't believe the earth is, I can't force myself to believe that, there's a flat earth. I can't force myself to believe I can fly. I can't force myself to believe I'll live 300 years. I mean, those types of things, belief is just organic. So essentially you're trying to fake God out. I just find it an interesting way to approach. His invocation of Pascal was so random too, because he was talking about something totally unrelated. Yeah. Bizarre. Anyway.
Wait. I did a video on Pascal's wager because, first of all, Pascal's wager is only a comparison of a very particular view of Christianity compared with and contrasted with a very particular view on atheism. Or at best, Christianity versus everything else that's not that version of Christianity. And you have no reason to think that there's a God. You have no reason to think there's an afterlife. You have no reason to think there's a good afterlife or an evil afterlife. You have no reason to think that you have access to whatever criteria would determine whether or not you're going to get the good afterlife or the bad afterlife. And in addition, there are versions of Christianity practiced by people like Billy Graham that are annihilation theory, where those of us who are atheists, we just cease to exist. We don't spend eternity in hell. We just cease to exist. And, you'll find out when you're dead. But if Billy Graham's right, I won't find out when I'm dead because I'll just cease to exist. There is no bad afterlife waiting for me under his model. And if I find myself in a bad afterlife, the question then becomes, what could I have known? What should I have known? And what could I have done or should I have done to avoid that bad afterlife? And if we don't have a way to investigate this and try to figure out, hey, here's the afterlife that we should be avoiding, then do we just seek the greatest heaven or avoid the worst hell? And how do you determine what they are and what the criteria are? It is gross. This is contrasted, by the way, with this God of Jiro's that's hiding, this God that is not providing evidence that he exists or telling us anything at all about why we should be following this particular journey. All of these things that Jiro supposes, that there is a God, that God won't be tested, that God has given us some direction, and that's the reason that we have certain desires. All of those things are completely unfounded assumptions. And so Jiro is doing the prime example of another topic I raised once, which is called compound assumptions, or compound inferences, I think is what I called it, because then it was closer to interest. But if you infer that there's a God, and you infer that there's a heaven and a hell, and you infer that there's criteria, and you infer that you don't have access to it, and you stack all these up, and you have a whole bunch of inferences that together help you reach a conclusion about how you should live your life in accordance with all of these inferences. If any one of them is wrong, it all falls apart. And since none of them are on any kind of good foundation at all, you can't have a reason to believe it. And so you might as well just be writing fan fiction for what you'd like life to be like.
I do enjoy the party game questions about reincarnation. Was it Hitch? He wasn't talking about reincarnation, but before he died, they were like, "What if there is an afterlife?" And he said, "Well, I rather like surprises." So if there's something out there, but we've often said, "Well, if you were to come back, what would you want to be?" And outside of one of my own dogs, because they're spoiled rotten, and maybe Bruce Campbell, I'm not sure exactly what the answer to that question would be. But the truth is if I die on this planet and something else happens afterwards, I'd be just as curious as anybody else. Whatever. If that happens, call me. We'll talk. If I can let you know, we'll talk. But so far, there's been zero. So.
Hey, what's up? I'm glad you enjoyed that clip of people talking to each other. I'm Jimmy, and this is Eric. And we'd really love it if you would support us. Where can they support us, Eric? Where would they do that?
I don't know, Jimmy, because I don't have the notes on me right now.
This is too long. The outros have to be short. Patreon.com/call the line.